So hello there, this is Kim Knight from kimknighthealth.com, and I've got a really exciting podcast today. And if this is the first time that you have come across one of my podcasts, let me just briefly introduce myself. I work as a health and personal transformation coach, and I specialize in helping people identify and clear the real root cause of physical illness or unhappiness. So it's like pulling the issues out at the root. And I do that by offering self-help programs online and also private coaching. Now today we're going to be talking about autoimmune disease and the thyroid. So the connection between the thyroid and autoimmune disease. And I'm going to be speaking with the wonderful Kora Klapp, who is International Meta Health Master Trainer and Practitioner. So welcome, Kora.
Yeah, so pleased to be here, Kim. Thank you so much, and hello to you all.
Yes, so I'm in New Zealand and Kora is in Spain. Is that right, Spain?
Tenerife, actually, Canaries.
Tenerife. Okay, it's close. Right, so yeah, the wonderful World Wide Web allows us to do this. It's simply fantastic. So the theme, as I said, is the autoimmune disease and the thyroid. And really underneath that, we're going to be talking about the underlying themes of powerlessness, hopelessness, and struggle, which connect in with these physical conditions, which Kora is going to explain much more on. And by the way, I just want to mention that as I'm speaking right now, we have got some super duper awesome slides. And I'm going to share at the end how you can actually watch these slides. So you may be just listening to the audio right now, but if you want to see these really fantastic informational slides, then I will let you know how you can do that at the end of the podcast. Now, I want to share before I introduce Kora and tell you a little bit about her, and then hand it over to her to move this interview on and all the juicy information she's going to share. I just want to share the 5 reasons that I asked her to speak. So first of all, what I've noticed is that thyroid, gut, metabolism, weight issues seem to be extremely common. Would you agree with that, Kora?
Oh, very much, Kim. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the first reason. The second reason is this is a very personal issue for me. I have healed myself from multiple health conditions, including clinical depression and chronic fatigue and a whole host of other health conditions that had me unable to work for 10 years and actually ill for a period of 25 years. However, the thing that I still have not completely resolved is an underactive thyroid, very low iron, slow metabolism, and then the consequential weight issues that come with that. And I have actually been clinically diagnosed with Hashimoto's, and I hope that Kora is going to talk a little bit about the difference between, overactive, underactive thyroid and Hashimoto's. So that is the second reason. I love to, I'm constantly learning so that I can really keep improving my health, which obviously I have done a heap, but there is just still this one deep underlying thing that I've not completely cracked on the head, so to speak. The third reason is that regarding the theme of powerlessness, which I mentioned just before, is that what I found with the clients that I work with is that most clients with chronic long-term illness seem to have what I would call disempowerment issues. In other words, they don't feel empowered. Have you also found that, Kora?
Absolutely, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute, much more in depth.
Awesome, because it's a huge issue. It really, really is, and especially with women, but also with some men. And the fourth reason that I've asked Kora to speak is that she is a master practitioner of Meta Health. And what I absolutely love is the scientific precision of Meta Health to be able to correlate the stresses and emotional traumas that we experience with specific organs or organ tissues and areas of the brain and emotional, what they call conflict themes. And that really fascinated me, and that was what led me to train in Meta Health last year. And that was how I met Kora, because she was one of my trainers. And MetaHealth has just got so much research and science behind it into such precise ability to be able to identify, okay, if this conflict happens, then this part of the brain is going to be affected, and it will mean that this person is experiencing this type of emotional conflict. And it is just brilliant information. So that was the fourth reason. And the fifth reason is that Kora is a master of this information, and I like to go to the best people, and she's a really great person too. So those are
Thank you so much.
why I invited you, Kora. So let me just tell you a little bit more about Kora. She is a coach and master trainer in MetaHealth, which is the art and science of self-healing. And funnily enough, it always makes me laugh when I read that with MetaHealth, you know, their strapline, whatever you call it, because my business, it's changing now, but my business has been for the last several years, the art of health and science of well-being, which is very similar. And so her business is based on a comprehensive understanding that health is affected by what is going on in our mind, our emotions, and the function of our inner organs. There's a connection. And her call to work as a therapist came as a result of living through the self-healing, her own healing process of anorexia and various symptoms such as edema, which means swelling, multiple allergies, and also psychological symptoms like regressive, depressive, and manic states. So she realized that it was vital for her not to pass on the responsibility for these things onto others, but instead to make her own decisions and use the consequences for her own healing. So her life path has been an adventure of working in physiotherapy, but also she's trained herself in seamanship and the ability to sail traditional windjammers. And also, one period of her life was into nature, and or probably still is, and permaculture. She then returned to the healing profession and trained in NLP, which stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and also hypnosis and various mind-body approaches in order to implement MetaHealth. And all of this has provided her with the stories and insights and perspectives that support her life goal of passing on the wisdom and empowerment of MetaHealth. And I love the way that you put wisdom and empowerment, because it really is about empowering people, you know, in their health, and that is totally my goal too. So today our agenda is to talk about autoimmune disease, thyroid, the related themes, and there may be more things in this, but this is just what I put in the slide presentation so far: powerlessness, hopelessness, struggle, and other bits and pieces of MetaHealth theory. And to start with, I'm going to hand over to Kora, and she's going to just give a little bit of background information, some fundamental theory which underpins MetaHealth on these brain organ relays and their emotional themes, and also explain what a Yudin moment is, and explain the stress regeneration phase. So I hand it over to you, and I'll give you control of the slides.
Okay, Kim, thank you very much. And I think we just start. See if that, right now it doesn't change.
Yeah, you have, yeah.
Oh, no, now we're there. So great. Okay, so just I want to break these MetaHealth terms down for you, just so that you're with me in the basic knowledge that we need to understand those issues that we have to deal with and cope with. So one of the really fundamental things, so that blew my mind when I really got to know this, was the so-called Yudin moment, Yudin event. So, because this is actually the starting point where all kinds of disease processes we really take a start. So the thing is, every one of us has had many of those moments. I guess when I explain this to you, you will be recognizing what you might have lived through and experienced in your life as well. There are moments that are actually, there's something happening to you. It's completely unexpected. That is the you in Yuden. Completely unexpected. It is absolutely dramatic. It might be life-threatening for you. You know? So that's how you perceive that moment. Unexpected and dramatic. It is at the same time isolating you from your environment, from your surroundings, and from your resources. So you feel completely on your own. You feel isolated. Well, there's nobody to help me there. So that is the I in Yuden moment. And the N is you have absolutely no strategy to deal with that yet. So these are the 4 factors that are important to know about those moments which are starting those so-called disease processes, which actually I don't really like so much to talk about as disease, because they're actually biologically meaningful processes, which I'll be going to show you in a minute. But this you have to understand, those moments, those traumatic moments that everybody here has experienced themselves, that are unexpected, you didn't know what was coming, and were absolutely dramatic. You felt isolated with no help and no strategy at all. So let's look at what's coming now. So here's my next slide. So here I'm going to show you the process. So very simplified, the process here. Looks actually a little bit like the yin and the yang, right? So this is the kind of rhythm that we have in life that you can see here in that ball here, in that wave. And you see something that is called the stress trigger. And a stress trigger, this can be a Yuden moment. Actually, the first stress trigger that there is for any kind of disease is a Yuden moment, or has been a Yuden moment. But then, afterwards, it does not necessarily have to be a Yuden moment every single time, because it could have been just something that is reminding you of that Yuden moment that you once experienced in your life. So, and what's happening then? If you experience something like that, the Yuden moment, or later in your life, a stress trigger, bringing this Yuden moment kind of unconsciously back to you, then actually you're going into a stress phase. And a stress phase means that you are reacting on all levels. You're reacting emotionally, you're absolutely stressed out. Yeah, you're reacting with your thoughts and beliefs about yourself, about the world. You have repetitive thoughts. So often, so it's just going into one direction. How can I resolve this? What's going to happen? What can I do? So really, when you are absolutely stressed out, and that's when the beautiful biology is coming in, because your body at that point, in this phase, is trying to help you to resolve this stress. That's actually what it is doing on a biological level. So your organs are reacting in the stress phase in order to do something for you that might relieve that stress, that might resolve that stress. And this is then will be the regeneration trigger. If this is happening to you, there is happening something that is relieving your stress, then you're going over into another phase, into the second phase, which is the regeneration phase. And everybody knows this and has experienced this before. When you have been really stressed out and you have dealt with something and exhausted yourself, and then something happened and the issue was resolved, and then, wow, what you got tired afterwards, right? So this is the regeneration phase. So there are really some typical emotions and thoughts, which is our emotions of relief then, and thoughts about, wow, oh, okay, now I'm really, I can relax again. And that's what your body is doing. So then everything is about repairing yourself. It's just like what happens in the rhythm of day and of night. When usually in your daytime activity you might be more stressed as well, because you're just active and doing things, while in the nighttime usually you would sleep and you would recover, right? So, and that's the same thing is happen in disease processes, but in a very exaggerated way. So when your organs and emotions going into stress phase and really focus on this, you have organ reactions according to that. And then comes the regeneration trigger. And afterwards, you get into the regeneration phase. And your organs are reacting in that way with very special symptoms, very specific symptoms also for different organ tissues that we can recognize. And from recognizing those kinds of symptoms that you have, we can say in which phase in this process you might be. So, and that's the beauty of meta health. Now, you know a little bit about this works. And so you know about that there are specific reactions that you have in that traumatic moment, in that Yuden moment itself, which would be, if you think back to a traumatic moment that you yourself might have had, and when it really was unexpected and isolating and all of that, you would go into a short freeze reaction, where you really, I can't do anything. This is the Yuden moment, the frozen moment. And this is the typical reaction which can even be seen in your emotions and in your organ tissues. There is a freeze reaction. And after the freeze reaction, then you are really getting into the stress in order to resolve that stress. And that's what your organs also do. So just what I've been talking about, you have a stress phase, a resolution trigger or regeneration trigger, and a regeneration phase. And these symptoms that you have in those phases, both in your emotion, thoughts, and in your organ tissues, are quite diametrically different from each other, right? So because they're actually, what happens at the end is that they are balancing out each other.
Kora, can I ask a quick question? Sure. Can you give a really simple example of, a stress trigger, a stress phase, and then a regeneration trigger, which would trigger the regeneration phase?
Sure. Okay. Very easy. Everybody knows something like that. You've got a job. You need that job to do your life. To get your money and everything. You're doing this every day. You're going to work every day. And one day you go to work and something's different. And then the boss is calling you and giving, okay, and now you don't have to come here anymore tomorrow. So you lost your job. And this might just be that Yuden moment. You never expected that to happen. And it's quite dramatical because you don't know how to, what to do with your life and how to provide yourself anymore, right? So this can be experienced as a Yuden moment. Then, of course, you would be getting into a stress phase because, okay, how can I do that? How can I get a new job? What other things can I do to feed my family, myself, and all of that? And then something happened. Might be you find a new job or something else might happen to just relieve that stress. That would be the regeneration trigger. And afterwards, you're really going into all that stress that you made for yourself. You have this, oh, wow, okay, this went over. And what happens next? Often after these moments, when this really is relieved, the stress, that's when many things happen that we actually experience as disease. Because these are the kinds of symptoms that we might get. These might be infections, these might be swellings, this might be a cold or anything like that. And of course also, and we are going to get into this specific for the thyroid. And at the end of all the process, and if it would not repeat itself again, you would be regaining your health once the thing is through, right? So that was a short example.
So the key thing, I think, for people who, because this is, I think when we know information really well, as you do, it is that it's so simple to understand. But I know for myself before I started training in Meta Health, or actually when I started training, which was actually 2 years ago now, I could not understand this diagram and this, you know, this stress regeneration cycle. And yet now it seems complete, you know, it totally makes sense. So I think the key thing here is that that there is a stress and regeneration cycle, and that both, or phases rather, and that both phases make up the totality of, you know, a cycle of health. And also what is brand new information and quite shocking, but in a good way, an interesting way to a lot of people, is that when we have symptoms, our body is in the regeneration healing phase. Now that is, you know, most people think, okay, if I have symptoms, there's something wrong, and that's where I've got to try and, you know, fix things with maybe some medication or whatever. But actually, when we have symptoms, our body is actually self-healing. That is radically different from, you know, medicine.
Absolutely, Kim. But we have to just say not all the symptoms that we can get and experience as disease come from the regeneration phase. So it's a little bit more complicated. There are certain symptoms that come actually also in the stress phase. But by knowing this meta health, we have, for one thing, just as you said, the big reframing. Well, very often we already had our trigger and we are on our way to health. But it's still important to us to distinguish well, when this is just not only that is the case. So that's when you would need more information, or you would want to work with a therapist, as you are, Kim, or I am, to just find out, to just work together with, to find out how to really make this makes this sustainable. This way back to health, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, I totally understand that sometimes, yes, symptoms can come in the stress phase as well. And then there's all these, you know, repeating things and re-triggering, which does make it a lot more complex. So this is quite a simple introductory explanation, which is all we need for now. But I love the way at the beginning how you said that disease is actually a biologically meaningful process.
That's it. And the thing you can see here down in the slide as well. So if you know what this is about, and we just started out about this with the Yuden moment, and when you know what your stress moments and your Yuden moments were about, combined to the things that you are experiencing in your organs, like in your thyroid and the stuff coming from that, then you actually have the hint about, well, okay, what do I have to do to resolve this, and to really resolve this sustainably, to get really back to a sustainable health, right?
Yeah, perfect.
So that's the thing. So I think we can go on, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, there's another thing that I like to share a little bit about, and this is the fundamental knowledge about meta health. These are the different brain layers that we have that are actually connected with specific themes in our emotions, but also connected to specific organs and organ tissues that we have in our body. And so there are four main brain organ relays or layers, which are in the brain: the brain stem. You know, this is a structure in the brain which is very, very old. It's like the reptilian brain. Perhaps you've heard that term before. And here, everything is really just about down-to-earth survival. Yeah, and because it is down-to-earth survival, which are the things and the organs and the themes that are mostly connected to those. So this would be actually the digestion, that would be to getting towards nutrients, to get them into your body, to process them, and then to just kick out the rest, right? So this would be digestion, and then also, of course, reproduction. So these would be themes that the brainstem is about. And of course, we have certain organ tissues which are dedicated just for those purposes, right? Then the next layer would be the cerebellum. Cerebellum is a part in the occiput, in the back of our brain, right? So, and here we have everything about our integrity, about our protection. So the kinds of hidden moments that we could experience because of a breach of integrity or protection, that would be an attack towards us. It could be in form of a defilement, yes, or a deformity, or that we just experience, oh, something is like throwing mud at us, something like this, yeah. So we really experience this attack towards us, and these kinds of things, and the need to shelter, to protect us from those. These are themes of the cerebellum, which is the second brain layer, and together with the brain stem is making out the so-called old brain relays. And so in difference to the old brain, we now look into the so-called new brain, which consists of the cerebral medulla and of the cerebral cortex. So, and this is actually the main part, the biggest part of our human brain, made up of those layers. Now we have the cerebral medulla, which actually, this is a lot about ourselves. This is about our I-ness. I am. This is about our self-worth, about our self-esteem. And the conflict to this would, of course, be something when we lose some self-worth, when we lose our self-esteem, when we find ourselves inferior to other people. Yeah? So this is a lot about our self-evaluation. And these kinds of hidden moments, these kinds of conflicts, they would represent themselves in the cerebral medulla of the brain and also in specific organ tissues that are connected to those. And then, at last, we have the cerebral cortex, which is, of course, very famous for us as human beings, because in the cerebral cortex, there's a lot of thinking going on that we as human beings do, which we consider other beings on the earth not doing, yeah? So conscious thinking. So, and these conflicts, so the theme about this is a lot about social contact that we have. So this is about us in our groups. So it's not about us ourselves, like in the medulla, but it is as us belonging to a group. And of course, inside a group, we have a group structure. So the kind of themes and also the kinds of hidden moments and conflicts in the cerebral cortex are about our position in our group. So this would be like, if we talk about nature, we would talk about our territory, right? So we know from animals, when they go in flocks, so they have their certain territory. Or if you've got a dog at home, so it needs to mark its territory, right? So it goes around peeing all the time everywhere, so in order to mark its territory. So and we as human beings have actually the same kinds of needs to express ourselves and to mark our boundaries and to have our own places where we are, and also our own social social boundaries, and okay, this is my thing, this is my work, this is my baby. So these kinds of things, our responsibilities, and to protect them and to defend them from others who perhaps we experience that they want to take them from us. So these are the kinds of conflict themes that we have in the cerebral cortex. So these are a lot about social kinds of conflicts. So these are those basic brain relays in type of themes that we experience there. And we need to know about those in order to understand things about what's happening in our thyroid. So here comes the next slide. So this is about what's happening when we have an autoimmune disease. So that's a conventional medicine label, as I would like to call it. I guess, Kim, you might agree with me, so that it's not really helpful to have somebody telling us, oh, okay, there's some enemy within you. So, and you can't do anything about this. This is just yourself. This is just your body who is fighting itself. Now your body is not working anymore, and you have to take like medication all the rest of your life. So this is very, very disempowering, right?
So,
And
sorry, I thought you were asking me a question. So it's disempowering that the body is fighting itself, or is disempowering that you're told that you have to take medication for the rest of your life?
I think it would be both, right? So the thought that your body would be fighting itself, I find this quite disempowering, because if I think, well, I can't help myself if my body is fighting itself, so what can I do? Yeah, and of course, the only resolution that conventional medicine has for us is to take medication against this and to suppress that reaction, right?
Well, so you just said something really interesting there. You said, I can't help myself. That's quite a key phrase, isn't it?
It is. And I can't help myself. It's just also one thing that is key in thyroid issues. And we're going to come to that in a minute. Here, I just listed up some kinds of issues, like those hypothyroid, like the Hashimoto that you yourself experience also, Kim, or you get the diagnosis of Hashimoto, which again is a label placed upon you. Which we in mental health terms, we wouldn't usually not say you've got Hashimoto. We would always ask, what do you have actually? What do you experience? And then we can distinguish what really is behind that. So we are very, very specific in mental health, much more than usually conventional medicine is, although it can be giving quite good hints, so I have to admit that. So then you have other kinds of autoimmune stuff that they are calling like that, like the adrenal fatigue, like a fibromyalgia. So these are all kinds of things that also are seen connected to thyroid issues, right?
Absolutely.
So,
and I love the way that you say, because it is so important that, people can get really, really hooked on the label that they've been given. No disrespect meant towards doctors, but, they get very, very hooked onto, I have adrenal fatigue or my fibromyalgia. And that actually really gets in the way of moving forward. And so I always recommend to people, take away the label and look at what the symptoms are, and then work out, okay, well, what's the meaning, the biological meaning in those symptoms.
Yeah, that's it. So really, if you just dare to think, so what if it's true what I said? And if the body reacts in a biologically meaningful way, even in those kinds of autoimmune diseases, as they are called, even if if the kind of adrenal fatigue that you have, the fibromyalgia that you experience, or the hypothyroid issues or hyperthyroid issues, whatever. So if they were meant to be helping you, if they would be not worthless, if they would not be wrong, but if they would have a meaning, and if you get behind the meaning that they have, that you could help yourself again to get out, right? So let's get into that. Take next slide. And now we want to look into the thyroid gland and how it's working. So the thyroid, as probably everybody is knowing, is belonging to the endocrine system, so the hormonal system, which actually is steering basically all the other kinds of organs that we have in our body by producing those hormones and releasing them into our system. And by that, in that way, telling our organs what to do. So the thyroid itself is situated at the trachea, so it's quite up there in our throat, and its functions is the iodine storage. Of course, we know that, and it's producing certain hormones, which are the thyroxine, which are the triiodthyronine, or the calcitonin, and I hope I pronounce this correctly, because I'm not English speaking as a native speaker, but only German. Anyways, Kim, otherwise you correct me.
It sounded fine to me. I don't think I could pronounce that triiodthyronine either, really.
Okay. anyways, you could Google it if you're more interested in what this is about. So these are actually the hormones that the thyroid produces. But what is it producing it for? So that is to influence our whole metabolism in order to speed it up. So that's actually what the thyroid hormones are doing. They are making you more like nervous, more agile. Yes, so it is influencing your blood pressure. You're getting high blood pressure when you're getting those thyroxine into your bloodstream, right? So you get really getting up to it. You want to get active. You need to get active, and these are the things that the thyroid is actually about. And there's something that is very fascinating and special about the thyroid. It does not have only one brain relay, it has got two. So in our slide, you actually can see this by the color coding. So one is in the brain stem. The relay would be in the brain stem, and you learned this is about basic survival. So there we have something which really is about our agility, about to get something or to get rid of something that we absolutely need to survive. So that would be the thing that the thyroid is producing its hormones for. And the other thing is it also has got a relay in the cerebral cortex. And this is something different. So this is actually about our fears, about anxiety. And these are hidden moments and issues that would be connected to a so-called frontal fear or a powerlessness. And if you hear this, frontal fear and powerlessness, there's again a bell ringing. At least for you, Kim. I know this because we mentioned it already, right? So the hopelessness and the powerlessness, right? And the struggle. So these are two different types of reactions that we find inside the thyroid, which actually anyways are leading to quite similar symptoms that we are getting. And we're getting to them now in our next slide, which is coming up now. Which would be here for the first one, for our brain stem. Yeah, it would be the struggle for nutrition and for our own values. As human being, it's not only about eating, right? It's not like the same as it would be like a small animal which just needs to feed itself. But for us, it might be. So when you need to reach that, or when you need to get rid of something, just like you do in digestion, right? So just that when you when the thyroid is putting out its hormones in order to make you fast enough to reach that chunk of nutrients, which for us as human beings in our own conflict themes might be our house, our home, it might be our job, as I mentioned in our little example. It might be a car that I absolutely need to get to the job. It might be something that I expect to get, like an inheritance, like something that I seem to get, and then perhaps not. And that could be a conflict, right? Can be also some social thing that I absolutely need. But that's the thing of the brainstem. I need that, huh? It's not I like it or don't like it. So that's not brainstem. Brainstem, reptile brain is, I need that. Have to get it. Or I have to get rid of that now. So these kinds of things. And I would like you, the listeners here, I want you to think about what kind of things are there in your life, yeah, when you think back, so which your thoughts are circling around. In order to, what's the things that you really have as basic needs that you need fulfilled and you struggle with. So this would be a thing of your thyroid as brainstem related. Now we're getting to the other ones, which would be the frontal fear in like you see it, I see it coming. It's like the really like in a figure, as if a bus would be rolling over me or a train would be rolling over me. I can't move and I see it coming. And it naturally, it doesn't have to be a train rolling over you. it could be just like I mentioned in our small example. Well, I just went to work and I didn't. No, it was not that, because it was not frontal fear. You didn't see it coming. But if you would see it coming, if you know something is going to happen and they are going to fire me now, something, I see it coming and I can't do anything. So this would be an example for frontal fear. Or the powerlessness, and I can't do anything to help it because my hands are tied. I'm just like the small wheel in a big machinery. I can't, just little me, I can't do anything about it, although I'm struggling and doing, and I can't help myself. So these are the feelings that would trigger the cerebral cortex relay of the thyroid, right? So we've got the frontal fear. I can see it coming and I can't do anything, and I have the powerlessness. My hands are tied. I know something needs to be done at that, but I can't do it, right? So these are those things. Kim, I think I explained myself, or do you think there's something more that we need to explain about those?
I think it was really well explained, and a few little ideas popped into my head, because I know that I know, well, from what I know, I don't know everything, but that my whole thing started when I was born. And when you were saying, I need to reach for that, and the struggle for nutrition and also for values, is that, as a baby feeling completely abandoned, I think there would have been that struggle for nutrition. And also I was definitely struggling to feel valued as I grew up, because I never got any validation.
Wow. So see, just by thinking those things over, and this is the beauty in Meta Health, it gets you thinking about those things. And then you, of course, can think on and see, what can I do about those, huh? Right. Okay. Let's talk about those phases that we have in the thyroid gland and how we experience that. You remember the little picture of the stress phase and the regeneration phase. So here's what the thyroid's doing. In the stress phase, in order to help you reach your goal or get rid of what you need to get rid of, or even in order to help you survive the frontal fear or the powerlessness, the thyroid would produce an increase of its function. It would be producing more hormone. This is what the brainstem would do. Or it would be releasing more hormone into the bloodstream. That is what the cerebral cortex relay is doing, right? So in both ways, this would relate to a functional increase. This is you have more hormones in your bloodstream, you're getting more nervous, you're getting more agile, right? This is speeding up your metabolism, so you're getting an increased heart rate, you're getting a high blood pressure, and all of those things. And if you experience these things for a longer time, this also leads to a goiter that you have in your thyroid, because it's getting bigger. Right? So if the kinds of things that the thyroid does in its function, in producing the hormones, if this is not resolving the issue for you, so if you have the ongoing stress, and this is going on and going on and going on and going on, so then what would it do? The brainstem, it would make the thyroid get bigger in order to produce more of those hormones. So this is biological. So this is the logic of our biology. So if this is not enough, and this is true for the old brain relays, for the brainstem and the cerebellum, if this is not enough, what we are doing when we're increasing our function, so then those structures, those organs, they will grow. And so this might mean you might, in the thyroid, grow a goiter, or this might mean that you would grow an adenoma, right? So this might be you could get thyroid cancer. And this is happening in the stress phase. So this is actually something that is not happening in the regeneration phase, and because we were just a minute ago talking about some symptoms. This would be a stress phase symptom. Otherwise, you usually in this stress phase, you don't feel sick, You just feel stressed out, right? So, and perhaps for one or the other of you, it is just going up a light for you in your head. Okay, I might be in this kind of phase. And then when you have a relief and you go over into the regeneration phase, usually what would happen is the hormones would regulate again, so the production would go down, would decrease. But, and this is what often happens in regeneration phases, if the stress was very big, you really need, the body needs the time and measurements to regenerate. And this often creates inflammation, in inflammative processes, which in the thyroid would be a thyroiditis, right? And this would not be Hashimoto yet. It would be a normal thyroiditis. It would be an inflammation of the thyroid, which of course also comes with a fatigue and with a decreased metabolism. Yes, but if this everything would just be one cycle, one stress phase, one regeneration phase, after the regeneration phase is done and completed, you would be healthy again. Now, what very often happens is that it just does not happen only once, only one cycle. Yes, because what happens when you perceived this happening once and you didn't know what this was due to, and you can't really put this into order, and so you're getting some kinds of anxiety. You perhaps didn't find a really sustainable strategy to deal with those things, and then those same kinds of strategies and thoughts that were original in your stress phase, they would show up again. They would trigger you again into a same stress phase. And then you would have repeating processes in your thyroid. Yes? So this means if you experience in your life really a chronic repeating struggle or a permanent burden of stress, so that you need to deal with, so if you really have this chronically, then again it can cause a hypothyroidism. This means an underfunction in the thyroid. So you can actually have an underfunction in the thyroid in the regeneration phase, or in chronic stress phase, or in chronic repetitions of those cycles, right? And I know this might be a little bit confusing. So because it not only happens once, and you can't always say it clearly, oh, you must be in that regeneration phase. You really have to look very closely if you are there, or if things are repeating in your life. And if they are, it's really time to break that cycle.
So can I just say, what was really interesting there was you said, biological is the logic of biology. And interesting because the definition, the medical definition of biological is relating to biology or to life or to living things.
Yes.
I love the way that you said that biological is the logic of biology, the logic of this incredibly intelligent body that doesn't make mistakes, that everything has a meaning and a purpose, and we just have to work out what it is. And that is it's just a huge missing piece in our society today, and why so many people stay sick.
Absolutely. And don't you think this is much more empowering for every human being if you can perceive that in that way? So okay, if I know what this is about, I know which way to go. I know I at least have a hint in which way I can do my first steps and go onto the right way back to my health, right?
Yeah, it's so empowering to know that we can do something about it, and totally disempowering to feel that we can't.
Yeah, so that's it. And now if you don't mind, Kim, I have one example here of, actually she's a student here in our Meta Health University where I'm doing the teaching. So, and she was one of those who actually healed herself completely from her Hashimoto thyroiditis, right? So that's Deborah. We call her Deborah. That's actually her real name. and I just want to talk about her issue and how she perceived it as a real life example for you to understand what this is about and what you can do about it. Right? So what she experienced was she had this so-called autoimmune reaction, and this was after her pregnancy. So when she got her first child, she began with this reaction, and that was weight gain, fatigue, lethargy. She felt a lot of coldness. She felt cold in her body, so cold hands and feet, and she developed also a goiter. So this was actually a thyroid issue, so that her doctors told her that the tissue in her thyroid, that it was completely destroyed and unfunctional, so that it could not produce the thyroxine and the thyroid hormones anymore, with a prognosis that she would need to be on medication throughout all the rest of her life, which actually is very disempowering, right? So when she got to Meta Health and learned about those things and looked what was in the background for her to that, when she looked into her personal Yuden moments, and also the strategies that they created then afterwards. So she found something in herself. The pattern was that she actually was a human being who never really could say no to anybody. So she was like she did like she was told. She was kind of a pleaser or something. So she could not stand up for her own needs really against her parents there. So it was really a family issue for her as well. And then what happened was, at a certain point after her pregnancy, then she had another reason to stand up for, which was her baby. And at a certain point, I think it was a telephone call or so, she told me, so that she really had these emotions of anger and aggression towards her parents, and when she really stood up for herself and for her baby, yes, against what her parents told her. So that was actually for her a very big aha moment, a very good, very big moment for her to stand up for herself, but it triggered in her a freeze reflex, right? When she felt, wow, this is me. It was not that she really felt, wow, that's me and I can do it, but it was, oh, what's happening to me? These are my parents, yeah? So she felt completely powerless. She felt freezing in that phone call that she had because of that, and that was her Yuden moment. And after that, she experienced a returning pattern, which actually then triggered, of course, this so-called autoimmune disease. So it was a recurring pattern in her that she had repeated fear for emotional outbursts. Just think about that. Well, I did that to my parents, and she had a reason to do so, and she did that, but then she of course had this fear for being judged, for being condemned. Wow, what are you for a daughter? How can you do this? And she had this big hopelessness about that. Well, how could I ever resolve that? So that was her emotional pattern that she found.
So, Kora, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Are you saying that this Yuden moment happened after the pregnancy, the first time that she stood up against her parents' expectations? So the Yuden was after the pregnancy?
Yes. So okay. that it was the Yuden had nothing to do with the pregnancy itself. It had to do with the emotional pattern that she had to be at will of her parents, so to say. Yes.
Right.
So that absolutely. And the Yuden moment was, she did something for herself, which was actually basically it would be a good thing, but she could not experience it as that. What she experienced was the freeze when she got the response from her parents on the phone call.
But it's like an and, rather. What I find is that whatever is happening, as an adult is actually really a repeat of a pattern that was set up in childhood. So this relationship with her parents, this pattern, that would have started a lot earlier, wouldn't it? It didn't just start after pregnancy.
Is a very important thing to say, Kim, and that's absolutely right. The example that I give you is really just very so that you know what this is about and how this feels. And there are conflicts that can absolutely be in the here and now. But then, when you look back at the pattern that actually is the background for your Yudin moment. Yeah, this very often started a long time ago in your early childhood, really in your in this imprinting phase of your character, right? So very good that you said that, Kim. It's absolutely right. But the Yudin moment that referred now to starting this process of this autoimmune, she recognized that was really that moment. But the thing that why did she do that? Why could she never say no to her parents? This, of course, has started much earlier.
Yes.
Sure.
Cool.
So that's the thing. So very, very valuable things to know here, Kim, huh? So where to look for those kinds of patterns.
I talk about one of the things that I've really discovered. I hope I'm not interrupting here, but two things is that every person that I've ever worked with, I noticed that what I call the patterning for illness later in life gets set up by the age of 7, usually by the age of 7. Sometimes I could say by the age of 10, but I just see that the patterning, that unconscious patterning of how to behave starts by the age of 7, because of course that's when we're learning how to behave unconsciously as a child. And the second thing is that whatever is happening now is some sort of repeat of the past, and I call it the surface and the deep. So the surface is what's happening currently in the present, and the deep is actually really what's going on.
Very good, Kim. And I would absolutely agree to that. So these are like our own strategies that how to deal with the world. These are actually set up in the early childhood, before the age of 7, really at this imprinting stage. And afterwards, we really get to our personality and character and our resources develop. But before that, we really live more or less in a state where we are very can be impressed very easily. Yes, and we are just sucking up any kinds of informations without really negotiating them. But what we then need to do is to renegotiate them. And I think you agree with me there, Kim. That's just this kind of inner circus, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, something's got to change, essentially.
Yeah. And that's the thing that Deborah did then. That she actually went into her emotions and beliefs that were created both in this Yudin moment, but also before. Because to make it sustainable, you need to go to the roots, right? That's what we were talking about just now. So we have to renegotiate these patterns, and we can do that. So there are actually lots of methodologies out there, lots of tools that we can use both for our self-healing. There's some simple things that everybody can do even for themselves, like the EFT, the emotional freedom technique, which is very easy to learn. Everybody can do it, but there's a little caveat. When you learn these things and do these things, and I think, Kim, you will agree with me again here, when it gets to really deep conflicts. So at a certain level, we don't let ourselves into that unless we have help.
Yeah,
right?
And I'm a prime example. I still need to complete this healing, which I am currently, working through, but I need the help to do that.
Yeah. And it's the same for everybody. It's the same for me as well. So there are things that are buried deep inside us, and we can do lots of things for ourselves and resolve smaller stuff and really getting good at that. But the deepest things we still would want to see somebody that we trust, right? And work with him or her about that.
Yeah, because essentially we have our blind spots. And that word trust is so important, because unless we trust, we can't open up and be honest and vulnerable and get to that get through that closed door.
That's it. Yeah, because there are those closed doors, and again, these are a biological strategy, and really again a bio/logical strategy, because we could not deal with this. How can we trust that we could now, right? When we get into these states, so we get back then, it's like a kind of regression, and we don't feel the resources yet that we might have. We really need first to feel them and to have help in order to face this and to open those doors. Absolutely. So yeah, when we do this, and when we're working with ourselves or with a practitioner, then of course we need to look at our emotions. We need to look at our thought patterns that we have, and the strategies that we have, also coping strategies to these things. Just think about if you had a diagnosis about an autoimmune disease and so on, and this is like a label on yourself. Okay, I have Hashimoto, I have adrenal fatigue. It gets like I am adrenal fatigue, right? It's very often in people that it gets like a part of themselves. So, and this can even be like a coping strategy. And because of my adrenal fatigue, well, okay, I don't need to do I just don't have the potential as other people. So that might even provide a kind of relief for me. So I don't say anybody is doing that, but I know that there are people out there who actually, and this is unconsciously, no? So
yeah, well, it's sort of like, you know, we unconsciously give ourselves permission to not change, and also there's, you know, what is called, you know, the secondary gain going on.
That's it, huh? And we need to look at that in order to really have sustainable healing. And we need to do this very carefully and very lovingly. I don't have to remove every single thing. I can really check every single thing and see, okay, do I need or want to keep this at this point? Yeah? Perhaps change it later, or am I ready to release this at this point? So that's the way that I would do in a session with clients. We always check how this is fitting into their environment, and we need to find new strategies if this is actually fitting into their environment, right?
So what did Deborah do what was the change that she made?
Well, she had actually, so she went through lots of processes with both EFT and with matrix reimprinting to renegotiate these, both the Yudin moment. So this is really, you have those certain techniques where you can get all the resources that she needed then, that she placed into that situation, and for herself, just in her own mind, she really re-imprinted this, because we need also to know this for our own health. We don't need to change all the world. We only need to change how we perceive things, even our past. So this is actually another very big thing that I like to share. That is very a major thing. We don't need to. We cannot change the past if we look at reality. But does reality exist for us? For us, for our health, our only valid reality is how we look at it now, right? So if she can look at it now, and look back at this phone call that she made, and in the here and now, she can laugh about it, and she's completely calm about it. Then this is changed, and it changes all the pattern that she's in, and that's just what she did. I mean, there were a lot more causes for her than just this one phone call. There were a lot of things behind that you were hinting at in her childhood as well, and she did all that. So she did several processes, and which actually made her so resourceful that she could from then on change her own behavior, change her own perception, and change her own way to perceive the world and to behave in the world, right? So absolutely. Then she could, with like absolute certainty, stand up for herself. From that point on, she did it, and that was a lot of work for her, but it was all worth it. because in the end, they found out this thyroid, after several months, the thyroid started to produce hormone again. So she went through regular controls of the thyroid function and to a regular reduction of the medication. So they took it down step by step until she really came to that point where she did not need to take the medication anymore, and her thyroid had recovered. And this is ongoing now. I mean, this was more than a year ago that she had this, and I think she described it more than half a year ago, so it must be at least 1.5 years that she is completely healed regarding her thyroid. So that's really what you can do with these things, right? When you know about those and you dare to face it, dare to look inside it and just take the steps that you can take. Can be small steps, but if you want, you can reach it.
And that, yeah, and so important. And one thing that I just thought to point out was that meta health really is about understanding the problem, you know, putting these pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together, but it's not actually so much a resolution tool. And that's when people, you know, use things like EFT or matrix re-imprinting, or, you know, I use nickel therapy a lot with people, and, you know, and advanced clearing energetics. So there are many different tools for finding those resolutions. Would that be a fair comment?
Absolutely. So there are lots of methodologies that you can use, and so that's really something for everybody. So they're not all the same. You can really choose among what is speaking to you, what you're resonating with, right?
But the thing that I love about meta health is just this precision in understanding what is actually causing the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so these are the foundational knowledge that you have to know about thyroid, how your thyroid works. So, and also to how to look behind that, what was actually causing it to work differently as you're experiencing it now. So, from that we can actually derive. So, what would we do about that? And well, Kim, would you want to look into this, into these things, because you just told us you were you have those issues yourself.
Well, it was interesting because as you were talking about her, this is what I love about hearing other people's stories, or, you know, listening to other people talk about a similar issue, because then I reflect on myself, and we all do this, and that's why group, you know, coaching can work so well as well. Is that if I think back to what was the Yuden moment, like her Yuden moment was her, you know, that phone conversation, is I first remember with the thyroid back in 1986 when I was working in Switzerland, and I'd gone there with my boyfriend at the time to work in a ski resort, and I remember that he came to me one day and he said, "Oh, I've taken a job up the mountain," which was like a 45-minute train ride up the mountain, and I thought that we were going to be living together. And I've only just really thought of this right now, you know what I mean, piecing these pieces of the puzzle together, is that I was really disappointed when he said that to me, because I really wanted us to be living together, and there he was going off up the mountain. And I remember the first time that I noticed something going on physiologically, like this very strange sensation, that's the best way I can describe it, going on in my throat, in the thyroid area. And it really, you know, as you were talking about the, you know, this functional increase in the Yuden moment of the stress, you know, trigger, and then it goes into the functional decrease when there's a regeneration trigger. And I'm just wondering now, you know, this sensation that I started to feel in my thyroid, I wonder if that was actually the functional increase starting to happen. And
absolutely.
Yes,
and absolutely, Kim. And there's something that I didn't mention here in the stress phase, because actually in those in the thyroid, and this would be the cerebral cortex relay that is reacting here, it actually gives you certain some funny feelings. This could be like a slight dragging pain or stinging or something that is really like unusual for you, that's happening there in your throat. That is happening in the stress phase. So this is very usual there, that you can feel in the stress phase.
But then if I think of, okay, what is that meaning there? I mean, really, it's sort of like an abandonment issue, a separation issue. And then that brings me back to this birth trauma, which I'm currently working through to complete, because a year and a half ago I did, it came up big time, this birth trauma, which I hadn't recognized or cleared. And I knew at the time that the work that I did, which was very life-changing, but I knew I'd only done about 30% of it. And then last year, when I had a huge UDIN of being told that I had to move out of my house. It was a massive, I literally stood there shocked with my mouth open, because my landlord had already said, you always said you could live here as long as you like. And when they'd actually asked to speak to me about it, they said, oh, it's nothing important. It's just, we just need to talk to you about something. And then they told me, sort of dropped the bomb of, you have to move out of the house. And I literally felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me and the stuffing had pulled out from inside of me. Those are the phrases that come to mind, which means, there's not much of me left when that happens. And I recognized, I literally went into shock. And then a week later, they told me I had to move out earlier than expected. Originally, they gave me a few months, and then they turned it into 3 weeks. And that was like another UDIN on top of the original one. And then over that next week, where I was literally in shock, I was like, what does this remind me of? And I thought, oh, this is this birth thing that needs complete clearing now. So what I'm seeing as we're talking is that there's the original thing of the birth abandonment, and as I said, like a struggle for nutrition, and all, that sort of side of things, the brainstem type stuff. And then there's the trigger of when the thyroid potentially started overproducing with my boyfriend, so-called inverted commas, abandoning me. And then this re-triggering happening a few months ago when I had to move out. So how would you piece all that together?
Well, what I would see here, and we could confirm it when we look inside this. I actually see both types of conflict. I would see by what you just told us. There are brainstem conflicts like you had in birth. Right. So also about nutrition, and I need to get that. So that's what you were talking about. But the thing when that you refer to in when your boyfriend told you something, you were completely it was completely unexpected. And also then when your landlord told you have to move out, this I would say that was a shock, like a front affair. Like something, oh wow, this is, and the powerlessness. This would be a social thing, which the cortex is about. And I think you might have both patterns activated.
Yeah, which is probably why I'm finding it so difficult to clear it. But I'm determined, like this lady who got completely well, and I heard recently of somebody else, and I'm sure there's many people actually that I've heard of, not firsthand, but I know that many people have completely healed their thyroid, and I want to be another one of those statistics.
Yeah. And sometimes, Kim, it is also about, you want to change your the things that are coming back and coming back and coming back to you, like the things that you're experiencing in your life, the things what you refer to as an inner circus, or like repetitive patterns, what just happens to you, right? So those things, and you want to break up that pattern. And the thing is, you need to look at what do you need now, in the here and now, to break up that pattern. I know that you look behind this. You look that those things were in your early childhood, even in your birth process, and you are doing work to reframe this, to renegotiate this, which is very valid, which is absolutely important to do these things. And then you need to take this, of course, into the here and now and see what does the new resources that you work out there in the past, what do they make of you when you now have them? No? So how can you react differently from before, even if your landlord tells you, well, now you have to move out. So if you think back to that moment now, so how would you think about that, about it, or feel about it now? How much on the stress level? This is also belongs to our process, right? So how many points on the stress level between 0 and 10 would you give it right now?
The moment that they asked me to move out.
Yeah.
Maybe a 3 now. What I did recognize afterwards was that I got myself into a whole load of completely unnecessary stress, but that was just because of all that patterning that was running. But, you know, they actually offered me that I could move into the house next door. I just didn't know at the time whether I wanted to. And I really completely unnecessarily stressed myself. And I actually did move in next door. I mean, I could have saved myself all that stress. But I just got
what does that do with you now? If you know, the interesting thing about time is we can look back, right? And now you can reevaluate all of that. And you can, when you just can start laughing about this. I mean, and this is a gentle laugh, right? So this is a loving laugh. But this really does a lot of things to your thyroid because it learns.
Well, it shows me that, you know, yeah, I mean, I remember one of my flatmates saying to me once, Kim, you make mountains out of molehills. And, you know, in a way, I made a mountain out of a molehill, but I just went into such freeze response of I've got nowhere to go and nowhere to, you know, nobody can put me up if I can't find anywhere to go, and it's too expensive to move anywhere else in Auckland, and just all this thing that went on, plus just the sheer shock of being, you know, told that I had to move.
Yeah.
But if I look back now, you know, I can see that actually, you know, because for me there's been a lot of lack of trust issues, you know, trusting that life will look after me. And life did look after me.
Yeah.
You know, that's been a major ongoing, you know, so I've cleared it a lot, but still trust issues to, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So brilliant that you bring this up. So this is an absolutely great example of how life works for us, because we need to clear the background, like the Uden moments in our life, in order to reevaluate our strategies. We can't do otherwise because they are meant to help us, right? So this is meta health. So when you are going into a freeze response, and if you are making how did you say? Mountains out of molehills, right?
Yes,
so this is actually because of a biological strategy that you were following. So and now that you renegotiated those things and worked things out, even in your early childhood and in your birth process. So and you put the resources you needed then into the situation and back into your life, and you now have all of those. And you can look both on into your life from that point or back into your life from the point where you are now. And you can see this, that it actually was quite a ridiculous thing to stress yourself up about. So you have this from both directions, right? That would help you to heal this completely, that situation.
Yeah, and I like when we spoke earlier, you know, a few weeks ago, and you talked about resourcelessness, not feeling that one has any resources. Is that a common thing for people with thyroid issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is for everybody. The resourcelessness is which is putting us in a state where we repeat the strategies that we have because we don't have anything better. And that's why we need to look after new resources. So, and that's the thing what we, again, as practitioners, help people with, right? To clearing those things and to see what kinds of resources you can have now that you might not have at hand then when you needed them in the first place. So even for you, you can in your life now look at, okay, well, I might have experienced this and that earlier on in my life, but if I look now, what do I have and what kinds of learnings did I get from all the things that I experienced in my life? So these also are resources, all the learnings that you get, how to deal with things, and also how to sometimes not need to stress up about things because you can trust, right?
Yeah, and you said before, just a few minutes ago, you said we need to clear the Uden and then come up with new strategies. So that's interesting because I don't know about you, but my experience is that in order to clear a Uden, you have to do, something like, timeline therapy or NLP or EFT or matrix reimprinting or ACE or, whatever. And then we have to come up with new, literally practical, hands-on strategies, which is more what mimical therapy does. But they're two different things, aren't they? Because one, you have to sort of go in deep to clear the Uden, and the other is more of a, okay, what creative solutions can I come up with to do things differently now?
Absolutely, yeah, and they are tied together. So yeah, they are different. You're clearing the Uden, and of course you were working with resources in the past there when clearing the Uden usually, and then you want to make up a strategy or a therapy plan in the here and now with those persons. Okay, how can I apply this, which I have learned through this session or through these sessions and through these things that I know now and experience differently now? How can I apply this in my life? And then this is about really down to earth, strategy, how to deal with life differently now than before.
Right. So just to finish up, because I'm aware of time, that we need to, draw this to a conclusion. This last slide, which is more about the solutions. Can you talk us through that?
Sure.
No, the previous one.
Okay, that was the one that I think we did this right now because we did it at in your example, right? So what the things that you need to do in order to get on with your self-healings is first to recognize what are the repeating emotions and thoughts in your life, yeah. So when you experience your thyroid issues, your adrenal fatigue, your whatever it is, connected to that, what are the repeating emotions and thoughts? What is the pattern behind that I experience, that you experience in your life? And then where did they come from? Where were they created? What comes to mind where you perceived this before? Just like you did moment before, Kim, right? So, and then you get those kinds of ideas, what to work with, yeah? And then you, of course, can do those clearings with the kinds of methodologies that we have. When you recognize certain moments, certain Uden moments in your life, and then you're looking at your coping strategies and your habits that actually are either triggering you back and back and back into those same kinds of emotions and thoughts. Yeah, and now in the here and now, you can see after you have done the clearing with the Uden, is this valid for me anymore, or can I just let it go? Yeah. So, and then you would come up with something different, with something that you like to put there instead, and create new habits and new coping strategies. Because a coping strategy, of course, could be for some people just eating sweets or something, which obviously is not so very healthy. Also a coping strategy to conflict and trauma, right?
That used to be one of my good coping strategies, yes. It isn't anymore, but it certainly was.
Yeah. So you want to review them as well. So and with the kinds of resources that you worked up, with any kinds of strategies you use, so then you apply them, yeah, and create some healthy new strategies that really inspire you. And in that way, you can leave the old patterns behind you, and you do it gradually, you do it step by step, you do it in your own pace. It's not something that you really need to fear for. Again, oh no, I have to become somebody completely different. Well, this can scare you, But you don't have to do that, not in one step at least. But what you have to know is what anybody has to know. I think it might be well known. I think it's a nice quote that disease, actually any disease, can leave you when it cannot recognize you anymore, right? Because that what we perceive as disease is a bio/logical response. This is something meaningful. So it has to lose its meaning in order to leave you, right? So disease leaves you when it can't recognize you anymore. There's something that you can write on your bathroom mirror and see what things can I do differently today, right? That making me feel better and more empowered concerning the issues that I used to experience in my life.
Well, that's fantastic. So there has just been so much information that you've shared. Some really juicy, key, just so much information there. So thank you so much, Kora. So we'll just finish up. I think I've got back control of the slides.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So if people listening, if you want to find out more about Kora, then please go. This is how you need to do it. You need to go into my onto the website kimknighthealth.com and find your way either by going to free stuff or podcasts or online programs, and that will lead you to my Kim Knight Health membership portal, and where I have a free podcast section for all these podcasts. So not only when you log in will you get Kora's podcast, but you'll also get many others on many other different topics. And once you log in, you will be able to see all these beautiful slides that we've been showing. And you will also be able to download the MP3 so that you can put it on your phone or computer or whatever it is and listen to it. And you will also be able to find out how you can find out more about Kora and Meta Health. All the links will be there. So that's been fantastic. So any one last thing that you would like to share, like as a parting pearl of wisdom, Kora?
Oh, wow. Kim, now you get me. Now the last thing that I would like to share. I would say, okay, the most important thing is to start to look at yourself a little bit from the distance, to start to reevaluate and to look at what you are experiencing, yeah, in order to see what you can do, and just start taking the first step today. If it is little, but do something that you are not used to doing like that. Something that leaves you feel empowered. Because that's what you need to feel for in order to heal your thyroid. So that's what I'd like to share, Kim.
It's beautiful. And I just love that, this topic of empowerment is so important to me, because I am a recovering, victim, what I call a victim. I don't really like that word, but it's also good to be able to own it, because a lot of people don't, and then we never move out of it. And I've made massive progress, but still, obviously, there are bits left. And so I'm all about empowering myself and then helping people to, especially women, to empower themselves. That really came to me quite strongly a couple of years ago when I nutted it all down and got to the bottom of, okay, well, what's really going on with all these illnesses? And certainly the people that I'm working with, it's like, oh my goodness, it's all about self-empowerment. And I do really recommend that people watch, log into the portal and watch the slide presentation of this podcast, because it gives you so much more valuable information. And also, as you say, one step at a time. What I found, and I'm sure you'll agree, Kora, is that it is one step at a time on our journey of healing. And bit by bit, new pieces of the puzzle come in. And just as you can see, just me listening to you and reflecting as you've been talking, there's been a couple of pieces of the puzzle that have dropped in for me, which I hadn't seen before. and that's how it works. It's just one step at a time, and then sometimes we can have like a lot of, you know, bits of the piece of the puzzle coming in, you know, all in one go as well.
Yeah, that's actually that's also a very beautiful thing, Kim, because it usually it's getting easier and easier when you get into it, because you're seeing a pattern appearing. And sometimes when you really get to a big issue and you release that, then a lots of other things are going together with it.
Yeah, like the domino effect. Yeah.
Yeah, that really
So
is.
yeah, so thank you so much for taking this time, and I'm sure, I hope that we'll be talking again in the future, because you have so much knowledge and wisdom to share.
Yeah, so pleased to be with you, Kim. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about mental health. Obviously, I love to do that. And great things that you share. And this is a wonderful opportunity to log into your website and to get all of this amazing knowledge that you share here on your site and with those podcasts. So thank you so much for having me, Kim.
Thank you, Kora. Thanks.